All right, number 15, Mizzou. Number 10, Vandy. Vandy's a 2.5-point favorite. College game day in the house. The over-under I have is .5 Mizzou rushing touchdowns in this one. Vandy's allowed 3 all year. One was Jam Miller with 17 seconds left to cover the spread in the Bama game. 2 others came in blowout road wins at Virginia Tech, at South Carolina. Therefore, zero rushing touchdowns allowed in 4 home games for Vandy. Mizzou tied for the national lead with 22 rushing scores, only half of which coming via Ahmad Hardy. Hardy has had a rough couple of weeks, albeit for different reasons. He wasn't as involved as Mizzou hoped in the Bama game, in part because Bama kept Mizzou's offense off the field, and also game script at the end when they fell behind 10, he wasn't going to be getting those rushing attempts down the stretch. Still felt like they left some carries, some opportunities for him out there, but
This is
nonetheless,
why did we stop running the ball in the second half against Bama Bowl?
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is for these two teams. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And the Auburn game for Hardy, DJ Durkin's defense did such a great job of gang tackling, meeting Ahmad Hardy at the point of attack. I was really, really impressed. That is such a solid Auburn defense, and they won that battle up front instead of allowing Hardy to get momentum in those slow developing zone runs. You actually had Kirby Moore trying to get Hardy looks in the gap runs, 12 of those. They don't really do that a whole lot at Mizzou. The last 2 games, Hardy has had more rushing yards after first contact than total rushing yards, meaning he's getting hit in the backfield way more, and he's having to make something of that. That's the first 2 instances of that happening to him in his career. That is not something that he has been necessarily a victim of, hey, I'm getting hit behind the line of scrimmage and I've got nowhere to go. I wonder how that impacts him, because the whole emphasis of Mizzou's ground game is you cannot press. You have to be patient. You have to use your vision to be able to understand where those running lanes are in that zone blocking scheme and how to attack them. That is what it is predicated on. It's what this entire offense is predicated on. That is nerdy football stuff, I realize, but it's such an important thing for someone who could be the best player on the field on Saturday.
Yeah, man, it's kind of unfortunate when game day picks a game like they did last week, because a game like this is when they should kind of keep coming back to the SEC, right? It's like 2 programs that I feel like are on the rise. I think that, would you say that both of these teams still have kind of hope in the SEC picture?
In the SEC title picture, no. In the playoff picture, obviously, yes, 100%. I would actually go as far as to say that the loser of this game still has very much a playoff path. If you look at the remaining schedule, it's not all of a sudden off the table. And I know that's going to be kind of the billing for this one, because it's 2 teams that don't have the historical success, who started off unranked. Mizzou shouldn't have started off unranked, yet they still did. And there will be this writing them off if they lose. And that's on the table. Like, I'm telling you right now, that's going to be the narrative. College game days in the house. We're both going to be hyping up both of these teams. And then all of a sudden, like, you suffer that second loss, and then you're just kind of out of sight, out of mind. That's for the SEC title picture, because both these teams obviously already have the loss to Bama. Bama's undefeated in conference play. But just in terms of the playoff picture alone, I would not be writing off the loser of this game, especially if it's close.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an underrated thing, I think, as far as, okay, it really just used to be like every team was kind of competing for their conference, right? Like when you talk to coaches in media days, you're like, we want to compete in this conference, we want to win the championship. Like that was a trophy that was really well valued around the country, because there were only 2 teams that had the opportunity to play for the Natty. So you could be a coach who won a ton of ACC or Big Ten championships and have like an awesome resume. And so I think that now that does give teams like this a lot more to play for, where it's like, hey, exactly to your point. And what it is that the top has refused to separate itself, right? These teams that have kind of stayed undefeated in SEC play, Alabama, A&M. And there's kind of that next tier where it's like the Georgias that have the loss.
8 total, Will. 8 total going into this weekend, with 0 or 1 loss in SEC play.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not dumping on either of these teams specifically. Like I said, I think Vandy is one of the best teams in the SEC. It's scary how high I would rank them in the SEC based on some of the things I've seen and how they play physically. Like, Vandy has a case for the most physical team in the SEC. Who do you think is the most physical team in the SEC right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. It ain't Texas, that's for sure.
This ain't Texas.
I don't think it's a good song. I don't think you could say Alabama is that team just because the lack of assert their will in the ground game. I would say I would put Mizzou up there. I'd put Mizzou up there. I'd put Vandy up there. I think both those two teams have like a real case for it. You can't say LSU is with their reluctance to run the football. Georgia's part of those conversations, but first part of the year, we were talking about the offensive line, played much better against Ole Miss.
When you give up that
I
many
think A&M,
touchdowns in a row, yeah, A&M
yeah,
is another good one.
A&M probably wouldn't get the number one though on that because, and we'll get to Cassius Howell, but their defensive lines at times has kind of struggled in with some of those chunk plays, and they've been a little bit more vulnerable. But if you're the point is, and I think this is the point you're trying to make, if you're asking that question, you have to include these two teams.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you could say disrespectfully about Kentucky as well. They're too tough. But that
Yeah.
being said, I think, yeah, like that just is a test. So I'm not doing the pat you on the head, good job thing. I'm saying these are two of the toughest teams in the SEC. It just happens to be where the top is such a logjam that I think winning this game, I think does matter a ton when it comes to, they're looking across the aisle at each other. And it's like, hey, we're trying to establish this brand of physically running the football, great offensive line play, which has kind of been a little bit of a lost art, great communication, some of the, option on one side. It's like a 2 or 3 headed rushing attack where like one side's going to attack you with a couple of guys and do some trickeration there. The other side is going to do true like pure triple option style stuff. So they're old school football teams at the end of the day, and I like Vandy here just because I think they have a little bit more of that. Maybe their talent is a little bit more hidden, and I think that I hate that it comes down to the quarterback as often as it does, but it's college football. At the end of the day, it matters. Like Pavia is just a little bit better than Purdue, and they do such similar things. You might get the ugly turnover here and there, but this is just like another really awesome game that it's the opposite of Auburn, Arkansas, where it's like both of these teams are achieving their objectives, and I'm excited to see them play. I'm going to take Vandy here to cover, but I think to your point, Mizzou's season would not be over by any stretch at that point.
Yeah, if you aren't interested in this matchup because they're not big enough brands for you, you don't like college football, and just watch something else. That's fine. If you actually watch what these teams do and watch the way that they play, watch the things that they do well, this matchup's awesome. It's so great. And I have no problem whatsoever with College Game Day being there. Two teams that I think, been at the forefront of defending when people have dismissed them. And I realize I just dismissed their chances to win an SEC championship. I think the Bama loss complicates it with them so very much locked in for one of those spots at this point in the season. But look, you're right. Diego Pavia, it changes everything. It changes everything. He shredded a very respected LSU defense, albeit one without Whit Weeks. Nobody's talking about the Mizzou defense either. Nobody. Only one game this year with 4 yards per carry allowed, and it was against Louisiana, and they only got there because they had an 84-yard touchdown run in that game. It was in the midst of a 35-3 second quarter, whatever. Louisiana also had a 2 for 14 passing day for 4 yards. So whatever, they gave up one play. This unit can beat you in a variety of ways, and I think Zion Young, Damon Wilson II, like they've been heating up quarterbacks all year. And maybe finally people are starting to come around to that, starting to recognize that more so. Zion Young was awesome in that game against Auburn. They can be a little bit vulnerable on the back end when they don't get home, though. And they basically can struggle against a quarterback who can keep his eyes downfield, not panic, and make plays. Basically be the anti-Jackson Arnold, kind of the inverse of that.
Mm-hmm.
Easier said than done. But I think Diego Pavia can be that dude. And it's not to say that he's just going to rip them apart all day, but I can't bet against Diego Pavia at this point. Like, you just can't. And as much as I love this Mizzou defense, I will continue to praise Josiah Trotter, who I just think is so underrated. I love Hardy. I love the bounce back late that Prabula showed. Kind of lost in the shuffle of that Auburn game. Was like he was really kind of scuffling down the stretch, and they were able to kind of turn some things around. Thought he showed a lot of toughness, being able to respond in ways that he didn't against Bama the previous week. Vandy's a freight train. Vandy's a freight train. Don't deny it at this point. Lean into it. Accept that this is a really good football team that is brutal to play against for 60 minutes. And if you get out with a win against them, you feel fortunate. Bama fans, in their heart of hearts, they're going to say, oh, yeah, it was Vandy. It was whatever. Bama fans, they were sweating that out. They were sweating that out. The final score is not going to be indicative of it because of the 17 seconds left when they scored that touchdown. But this is a tough out. And I think for Mizzou, this is a tough out going into their building. And I have Vandy winning this one. Another top 15 team that you're hosting as a home favorite. And I think they win another one by a touchdown, 28-21. And it's just more praise for Diego Pavia.
Right there with you. And this should be a pretty short game, too, with all the carries.
Probably. Probably. Vandy, I think Vandy's going to try and stretch the field a little bit. I think they would really try and prefer to stretch the field. Again, difficult when you have those edge rushers that Mizzou has for sure, but I think they would like to be able to try and take some of those shots downfield and try and get going that way instead of just leaning on the run, which has been really successful for them.